Alethea, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Let's delve into why one biotech ETF would be so different from another. I mean, I think there's a real important lesson for investors as they look at different ETFs, because you think they're representing the same sector, so they must be basically a commodity product or a Coke Pepsi. Obviously not.
That's exactly right, because basically the XBI has a lot of small cap biotech companies in it, and the IBB has an equal weight index, so it has like all of them are equal weight, right? And as we know right now, the small mid cap market in biotech has been pretty horrific. It's been very, very volatile, and most of the stocks are down. So, that's what causes this disparity. Is literally it's just like how it's capitalized and how it's weighted. So it's a very astute point that you can have the same companies almost there, and just the weightings be slightly different, and how the index is weighted, and get very, very different returns, especially in such a volatile sector as
so
biotech.
It's really a lesson in know your ETF, know what's in it, know how it's constructed, know how it may perform under different scenarios, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the Reddit crowd and their interest in biotech. What do you think of the Reddit crowd, number one? And how does a company like Moderna become a Reddit darling?
It's super cool, the Reddit crowd. Like, it's something that's so foreign, but it's just so new, and it makes the market so much more interesting, but also very volatile, mind you. My perspective on Reddit for biotech is just that, and Moderna additionally, is biotech's a really hard space to invest in, because you kind of have to know science, and you have to kind of know if these trials are going to work or not. And the space is really volatile. Things move up 100%, down 50%. But you can now, with like looking at simple themes like vaccines, we all know the Delta variant, the Lambda variant, take your pick of the next variant, are coming. So the very simple biotech theme right now is like, well, vaccines are probably going to be more important. And I mean, what's the bellwether, vaccine stock? It's like a Moderna, right? Or a Pfizer.
That's so interesting, Alethea. So let's back up for a second and talk about why small and mid-cap biotech names have been such poor performers, especially if the sector gets more attention from the Reddit crowd. It almost reminds me of the professional investors who are always talking about the pipeline or the next big thing or the next M&A target. Why are those same conversations not leading to more interest, whether it's from the retail public or whom else, in these names? I remember, past years when these were the best performing parts of the market and the valuations were very stretched. It would seem like now would be an interesting time to see more people trading them.
Well, I think it's kind of like the difference between like if you do this all the time, every day, and like the simple things are, number one, for small mid-cap investors, there hasn't been a lot of M&A this year, a couple major deals, but not much. Like, we all thought there'd be way more M&A, way more small mid-caps taken out. People had basket portfolios of these. So they haven't, so people are kind of capitulating. And then the second piece of it is just kind of like that people literally like don't really, know kind of, like, some of these stories are really complicated on the small mid-cap side, right? And it's just, it's kind of hard to follow unless you really are in the space. And a lot of investors who are professional investors are like, wait, I'm trading out of biotech when the vaccines come, because that trade's done, right? And I think we're all like rethinking that, but it is a little bit of divergence between the retail investor and the professional investor that does it for a living and has watched the space for, 10 plus years or so.
Absolutely. So to your point about how there hasn't been a lot of deal making, it's one thing if the general public doesn't understand the drugs that these companies are working on. It's another thing if the big companies don't. Is it that they aren't excited about the development that's taking place? Are they distracted by COVID, or are there regulatory concerns, you think?
I think some of these companies thought the price was too high. Like, these thought, because I just said, people were piling into small mid caps because they think it's inevitable that large companies have to acquire small companies because to build closer to the pipeline, because you can't just create an, organic pipeline that quickly. So I think it hasn't happened. And so people are kind of like, oh no, it's not happening. And the stock prices are falling, right? But, a biotech company, like a large company, they're not going to overpay, right? That's irresponsible to their investors. So there's that. And I think a little bit, you've seen like in gene therapy and some of these spaces where, the FDA has been a little bit more strict about things and the agreements they've made. And so that's a really fundamental issue that scares people. And additionally, just the fact that there's a little bit more pricing rhetoric with Democrats being in office and some of these infrastructure packages. So it's just kind of weighed on the space a little bit more. I don't think it's going to last forever, though.